The Blockchain Show is a podcast that demystifies cryptocurrencies and distributed ledger technology.
Hello, blockchain fans, and welcome back to another exciting episode of The Blockchain Show. And we have a very interesting chat today. Today, we're speaking to Matthew, and Matthew's from TradeCloud. Matthew, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Not a problem at all. So Matthew, TradeCloud, it sounds exciting. Tell us, what is this?
Okay, well, we started 2.5 years ago, and we're 4 founders, and 3 of us have a commodities trading background, where we're actually moving physical commodities from one part of the world to the other, as opposed to sitting behind a nice desk trading the paper. And we've basically got careers having done that, and we have what is deemed maybe quite a historically slow to adapt change industry. Now we moved from telexes to faxes to emails, and everyone's getting hundreds of emails today, so that's not a particularly good tool for communication. So we basically see everyone moving on to WeChat and WhatsApp. The problem with that is we're negotiating 25 clause physical contracts, and you can't do that unless you've got very fast thumbs. So what we built was a digital platform for communication purely for the commodity industry, a bespoke platform which allows very quick negotiation, price discovery, as an inbuilt chat which is monitorable and therefore is good for the modern age. And we can now generate electronically signed, legally binding contracts. So today, if our users send out an offer to sell copper, for example, they can reach 250 people within a minute.
Wow, that sounds pretty impressive. So first of all, so the 4 founders, did this idea come up while you were in the pub?
No, it actually came up. I'm sorry to disappoint you. It actually came up when my business partner Simon was on his 1 year's gardening leave, and I think he was sitting in the garden.
Yeah,
he had a beer by his hand. I don't know, and he thought, "Look, I'm booking my hotels on buying. I'm doing my clothes shopping, and yet here's the commodity industry stuck 15 years previously." So he phoned me up and he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Yeah, why don't we try and design something that works?" We put together a small demo for the industry London Metal Exchange Week, and we showed it to 40 different commodity houses. They liked it. So the next year was 3 months finding the development company that we wanted to use. We ended up choosing a company called Volo Global in Armenia. And we spent 9 months actually developing the first release. Today we're live. Our membership is 230 plus companies, over 35 different countries around the world. And we're growing a community.
That is pretty impressive. So when you launched this platform, was this something which everybody said, perfect, I need that now?
It's interesting because everyone we showed it to, bar maybe one hand out of 1,000, said, yeah, really like what you're doing. But as we know, with digital change, things take time. So whilst you may have the commercial guys all loving it, then it has to go through different stakeholders, and you need to go through legal. And they're all kept busy by various different tasks. So it may take 2 or 3 weeks just to get legal to come back. Compliance, another stakeholder in these big corporations. And whilst our platform is a lot more compliant than the current modus operandi, it still takes time to go through the process. So whilst everybody we spoke to liked it, it has taken time to onboard, to build that community. And then it just takes time to change. So I'll give you a very good example. Our marketing lady, the first week she joined our office in Geneva, she pulled out this advertisement. It was a cartoon, and it had 2 cavemen. And these cavemen were pushing a cart uphill. And this cart had square wheels. Okay. And a smart caveman came up behind them and tapped them on the shoulder and said, hey, you should try one of these round wheels. And they said, oh, no, we're doing all right. We're far too busy. And that's kind of an analogy of what we're having to break down with digital change, but we're no different to anybody else trying to bring something new to the market.
Yes, that sounds like a common problem we all have, that we get so busy in doing our standard process, we don't take time out to think around it and think, could I be doing this better, smarter, ultimately easier? Of course, if you're lazy like me, then you always find a way around it, and you'll try something new, which is good. So you came up with the idea. What challenges did you face in the development cycle, this 9-month period, to actually get the platform up and running? Was it more technical challenges, or was it more legislative challenges?
It wasn't legislation. The commodity industry, especially in the field of refined metals where we started, is not well regulated. And at the end of the day, we're providing communication. We're not providing a marketplace per se. With any large product or project of IT, it takes a long time. So in projects I've worked at in other companies in the past, projects traditionally come in far later than expected, way over budget, and you have a lot of headaches along the way. We were lucky in that we had very few stakeholders, and it was really Simon and I that were making the decisions, and it was me that was communicating and designing with the developers directly. We had a fantastic team over there in Armenia. It worked very well remotely, which was a concern of mine. But I have to say, without having people having to come in, other stakeholders coming in and changing the direction halfway through, we had a very smooth running. And I think if I'd have tried to do this in other companies, we'd still be building it today.
It's always a challenge, I find, working remotely. And I've recently had that exact discussion when another team I'm working with, we all came together in an office for 2 weeks. The biggest thing we found was the fact we could switch off at the end of the day, and we didn't just sit in our study going, I just need to finish that little bit and that little bit. And it's that mental perception, which is always good. But like you say, if you've got a good team of people around you with a common goal and understanding, it can work very, very well.
Yeah, I mean, our team was 45 people, I think, at the height of development, 25 of those in the development team. And the first thing I did when I went down to Armenia was I split them up into 3 groups, and we did role-playing. So I said, okay, I'm the smelter and I'm selling metal. And you 3 are traders. And I explained to them exactly how they would have to negotiate a deal with freight, with finance costs, with the hedging involved, et cetera, et cetera. Now, all of these communications today are either done over email or over WeChat, WhatsApp. Now, the first problem with that is that email is very insecure. So if you imagine we're moving around cargoes worth millions of dollars and tens of millions of dollars in some cases. Now, we've heard from a few different people in the industry, so it's not a one-off occurrence, that party A sends the invoice to party B and it gets intercepted halfway along the chain, and the payment instructions get amended. Party B ends up paying $10 million to a fraudster. Now, that is something that the security of blockchain should be able to avoid as a first key part. That just shows you that whilst I think email has served us extremely well, there are 2 problems with it today. And one is the security. It really isn't as secure as maybe it should be. And 2, we're simply getting too many. Anyone in this industry is getting 500 emails a day. So you're doing well to read them, let alone to file them so you can find them later. So the idea of the TradeCloud Commodity Web is basically to capture all these communications, these different types of communications, to streamline them and to have them all going across the blockchain. And at various different parts of the process, we bring in third parties who can verify certain information, whether it's the quality of the goods or the fact that the vessel left on a certain date or arrived on a certain date, or the containers were in a certain condition when I picked them up. And that information can be shared automatically with all parties that are concerned in the operation.
And shared with all parties, knowing that nobody can tamper with it or change any of that information.
Exactly.
Without actually adding additional data. That sounds like a perfect use case for the blockchain, and especially when you've got fraudsters involved in the process. You would have thought that would have been eradicated somehow with some application in the past, but it sounds like nobody's joined up all the dots.
Look, it depends on your business practice within your company. It depends with firewalls, but basically email is not as secure as it should be.
Quick question, and this is a slight personal one. I remember many, many years ago that fax was the main form of communication with ships. Is that still the case?
No, it's more email now, although what gives you title to the goods on the vessel is called a bill of lading. In our nice old-fashioned industry, most of the material moves around with 3/3 bills of lading. Okay, so this will basically say what the goods are. It's just 3 pieces of paper the same, what the goods are, who's got title to those goods, and who can take possession of them at the discharge port. Such that if you're shipping for 30 days, sometimes you've sold to a party who's sold to another party who's sold to another party. These bills of lading are literally going through the post all over the place. Okay, so if you've got a short voyage, can you get the bills of lading actually to the discharge port on time to actually discharge your vessel? It's a question mark. So what's happening today is electronic bills of lading are finally coming in. Okay, so we're doing a pilot for this TradeCloud commodity web, and we're using electronic bills of lading with a company that is the leader in that field, and they will produce the electronic bills of lading and feed that information into the blockchain to basically have a far more streamlined process in terms of not having to worry as to whether the postman's going to deliver your document, which allows you to take possession of your $10 million of goods or not.
Well, no wonder you've got so many people using a platform already. That's fantastic. And so how have you gone about taking your business model and then saying, right, how do we integrate the blockchain into this without getting too technical, just so that we get an overview of how this is working?
We're not a company that likes to build things that have already been built, especially if they've been built well. So we're going to be taking advantage of R3's Calder enterprise blockchain. So all we're having to do is to build sophisticated nodes, but nodes for each of the different types of service provider and participant in the physical trade cycle. For example, our CTO has been down in Armenia for the last 3 weeks with members of R3, actually putting the building blocks into place that then I can come along and design over the top of.
I've got you. That sort of modular architecture approach, which makes a lot of sense these days. Excellent. So if we're not into commodities, how can we help you as the listeners of the Blockchain Show? How can we get involved? If we like this project, we 100% behind it. Can we get involved? Is there anything you've got coming up in the future, etc.?
First of all, just so we started with refined metal. We're moving into the energy sector later this year. We're planning to move into the agricultural sector next year. And this is an $8 trillion business per annum across different commodities. So it's a huge digital opportunity. which we plan to take. Now, we've been self-funded to date over the first 2.5 years. We're now launching a security token offering. And we'll be conducting that in Switzerland. At the moment, we must have put in 100 pages of information through to FINMA, the Swiss regulator, and we're just awaiting their confirmation to proceed. And then basically using another form of blockchain technology, we basically onboard clients onto what's called the token gate blockchain. They go through KYC, they go through AML, and then they're able to invest and buy tokens for the TradeCloud STO. And that basically will allow investors to buy a token which can be exchanged for internal credits on the TradeCloud platform, and therefore is a utility token in effect for buying goods and services on the TradeCloud platform. But they will also, and this is what gives the security aspect, they also get a profit share whilst they're holding the coin, the token. Sorry. So it's a progression on from ICOs, which a lot of your listeners may have heard of, but it's far more regulated, and because it's a security token, because it's Switzerland. For example, I counted the number of companies we had got engaged with to conduct this STO. It was 20. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars just to run an STO, which again should give investors comfort that it's only serious people that are actually entering into this space.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you have any competition out there?
There are various different attempts to have some form of digital marketing, but they are very sporadic. Usually they are not independent. So, for example, an aluminium producer may put together a small piece of software just so they can tender their material. Now, the problem with that is you've basically got, if you're an aluminium consumer, if everybody does it, you've suddenly got to learn how to use 15 different platforms. Whereas if you're going with an independent platform, you build a community and then you can leverage that community. And it's really the possibilities of securing alternative financing, getting a very easy way to determine the best price for your material. All of this you need a community for. And it's something that doesn't exist on these standalone platforms for single producers or single consumers.
Absolutely, and that was sort of a leading question, because from my perspective in the research I've done into this area, you're doing it end to end. So this is a one-stop shop. You basically use the platform and that's it. You can do everything you need to do regards the actual logistics as well as the procurement and payment side of things.
Well, with regard to communication, yes. What we're not is a CTRM platform. So we're not going into the area where you manage your internal risk, shall we say. That's extremely bespoke in terms of how people do it. And what I found in my trading career is that we spent millions of dollars building our own, and it was extremely bespoke. And the problem with if you're trying to do it for a living, like if TradeCloud were to try and do that, you'd spend so much money building it and making it bespoke for the various different commodities that you wouldn't end up making any money, because there wouldn't be enough buyers of that platform to justify basically the outlay in the first place. Because the smaller guys are using Excel, the bigger guys are building it themselves, and you're left in the middle with a smaller audience, shall we say. Whereas for TradeCloud, because now we've built the building blocks, for us to move from refined metal module to energy module will probably only take us 3 months of development. So it's a very quick and a very agile piece of development, and it's very, very scalable. mean, I could buy my groceries with this platform. I have a neighbour who's involved in marketing TV rights for sport, and he said I could even use this for running tenders, because what's important today is documenting the process, and if you've got that all on one platform in one place, then it's a perfect audit trail for you.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's totally accountable, and it just makes it so much easier. And I think that's something which is happening in the whole of the IT industry, that people don't want 4 or 5 different systems to do something. Consolidation really is the key. And with the blockchain, shall we call it shared ledger technology, that is certainly becoming a reality. And this is a great use case for it. That's fantastic. I think it sounds like you've got a great future here with the TradeCloud.
Well, let's hope so. Let's hope so.
It sounds. I like the way you've built it up as well with that core functionality, and then you just got right. We can add modules on top of this, the different business areas.
Yeah, we're structured and organised guys, but we have the benefit of being on both sides of the business. So I traded for 10 years, but I was also the chief operating officer of a large trading house for 10 years as well. So I understand the need to be commercial, and I also understand the need to be structured and organised. And every business, whether you're looking at commodities or whether you're looking at something completely different, you have to take risk to make money. Now, what's important in the commodity industry, as many others, is you have to be able to have that risk transparently reported, and you've got to know exactly what it is at any one time. And I think that's what we've been focusing on as well.
And being based in Switzerland as well, that is the place of organised and structured process. Have you had to go through jump through any extra hoops because you're doing this in Switzerland?
No, none whatsoever. What we have had to do with the security token offering, yes, maybe you'd call that hoops, but we're happy to embrace regulation if it protects the investor and gives them confidence that they're investing in the right thing. In terms of the platform, it's actually been very helpful because you have so many commodity companies around. So I'm just half an hour away from Zug, where you've got maybe 30, 40 companies. So I can always just pop in for an hour to see customers and discuss what we're doing.
Fabulous. That sounds great. Excellent. And what's the website and other contact details?
Yeah, so World Wide Web, TradeCloud.sg for Singapore. There are a few different TradeClouds out there, so the SG part is important. You can also follow us on Telegram, on Twitter, on Medium, and LinkedIn. So there's also, off that main website, there's a link to our STO website on the home page. There's lots of information there as well. So again, it's another very different thing to what we're used to. We're used to being very much keep ourselves to ourselves as commodity traders, just get on with our business. And now we're suddenly having to promote ourselves and do podcasts and things like this. It's something that's very new to us. We're used to talking. We're also very used to listening. So it's a bit different for us to have to do most of the talking.
It's interesting because this business sits in the background, but us as general consumers don't really touch it, don't really see it, and don't really think about it until you hear in the news about shipping containers going down filled with Porsches and things like that. You forget that all this stuff's being shipped all around the world. And so thank you very much for taking the time out to talk to us on the Blockchain Show. And I'm sure our listeners are going to be looking at your website with some interest. It's a great use case, and I think that you're doing a fantastic job. Please go to the website. The white paper is very interesting. It's a very comprehensive website, and it's one I've spent some time on myself, just looking into the background of it. So, Matthew, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you very much.
It's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you, the listener, for actually downloading this and listening to the end, because that's where all the fun happens. So please go to the website, find out more, and support some of the people you are listening to on the Blockchain Show. Matthew's implementation here sounds like it's something to watch, and taking the business idea and then putting it on top of the blockchain will be something which will be great for anybody to understand, and how you've done that, especially with that modular architecture. Fabulous. Matthew, thank you again.
Thank you.
And we look forward to catching up with you soon. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
To learn more, visit theblockchainshow.com.